Hari Om. Om Namo Narayaneeyam dasakam 51. Slaying of Aghasura. Once, O Lord, thou decided to go on a picnic along with the cowherd children, setting out very early in the morning with a parcel of tasty dishes and snacks. All of thee went, taking the calf herds of different kinds along. As thou walked toward the forest, the holy dust raised by thy pair of lotus feet, which is sacred enough to purify the three worlds, was collected by the great sages and was rubbed on their bodies with enthusiasm and ecstasy. And thy appearance was celebrated by them as a grand festive occasion. O Lord Omnipotent, while thou, along with the other children, wert engaged in tending the calves grazing on the lush green grassland, the demon Agha, assuming the form of a deadly python, all of a sudden waylaid thee with the intention of harming thy person. The python, with his huge mountain-like form and his mouth wide open like a cave, was lying in wait on the path of the cowherd children, who, eager to play in the forest, entered the open hollow of its mouth unsuspectingly, while thou wert still a short distance away from them. O Lord, the cowherd children, who unthinkingly entered the entrails of the snake, along with their calf herds, began to get scorched by the unbearable heat inside. Thou, realizing the gravity of the situation, entered the python's mouth at once to save thy friend in need. On entering the serpent's mouth, thou inflated the body in its throat to such a great extent that he became breathless and started writhing in agony. Instantly, thou wrenched open his thick neck and emerged along with the cowherds and their calves. Then a brilliant ball of light which came out of the demon's body remained suspended in the air momentarily, and as soon as thou emerged from his body, quickly entered thy form and was absorbed in thee. This was a miracle indeed, which made the gods in heaven dance and sing. Then, followed by the gods Brahma and others who were full of amazement, thou and thy friends went to a different spot at noon and celebrated the picnic with all the tasty dishes and snacks. Tucking the horn and the flute in thy waist, thou holding the morsel of eatables in thy lotus hand, regaled the children with funny jokes, making them laugh heartily. Seeing this, the gods sang thy praises in delight. O Lord of the universe, enshrined in Guruvayur, the noble gods extolled thee, expressing their wonder at the fact that eating a humble meal in the company of the cowards seemed to be more pleasing to thee than partaking the sacrificial offerings with the gods in heaven. O Lord of such virtues, save me from my troubles. Dasakam 52. Taming Brahma's Pride. Witnessing the undisputable power of thy glory, during the liberation of the demon Agha, hitherto not seen in any of thy other incarnations, Brahma, with his mind determined to test thee, used his power of delusion and caused the calf herds to disappear from you. Seeing the agitation of the cowherd children at the disappearance of the calves, thou, leaving thy meal unfinished, went in search of the calves, as if to comply with Brahma's purpose. Brahma used this opportunity to hide also the children who were in the midst of their meal. In order to deal with this tricky situation, thou assumed the form of all the calf herds, the various cowherd children, and even that of inanimate objects, like the utensils, curd, pots and pans, the flute, horn, etc., and as before frolicked and played in the forest the whole day and returned to the village in the evening. Thou, who wert in the form of calves and covered lads, carried thy own self in the forms of the various pots, pans, horns, etc., and were welcomed in great delight by the mothers of the cowherd boys and the mother cows of the calves in these manifold forms. It is not at all surprising that these women and cows were filled with ecstasy on seeing these forms of thee. Any human being who begets a certain soul as his own child shows unlimited affection towards that child owing to his egoistic pride. Then how much more joy and pride these women and cows would not have felt in acquiring the supreme soul as their own son or calf. With their rapture growing every moment, the cowherd clan caressed and pampered thee in these manifold forms for a whole year, and even thy brother Balrama was able to detect the secret only after that. Undoubtedly, though both of thee are manifestations of the Supreme Soul, there is a very great difference between thou and him. At the close of one year, Brahma was extremely perplexed to see the two sets of old and new calves and covered boys. More so, he could not tell the difference between the two sets. Thou, wishing to dispel his confusion, showed to him each and every one of thy new forms adorned with crown, shoulder ornaments, etc., and having 4 arms and the radiance of the rain-bearing clouds. Moreover, Brahma had a vision of every one of these forms of thee being fondled and waited upon by goddess Lakshmi, every one of them reclining on the bed of the serpent Adisesha, each form with eyes shut in the trance of the yogic sleep, each form being worshipped by the sages Sanaka and others. Seeing all these charming poses, Brahma was convinced of thy identity. Overwhelmed by seeing these countless forms of Narayana and himself as an attendant of all these forms, Brahma was drowned in Maya. In order to dispel his delusion, thou revealed the form of a year ago, standing alone with an half-eaten morsel of food in thy hand. O Lord, then Brahma with his pride destroyed, bowed down to thee repeatedly and singing thy praises, heartily left for his abode, Satyaloka. Thou came back to Vrindavana with all the calves and the covered lads who were most happy. O Guruvairappa, may thou save me from illness. Dasakam 53. Slaying of Dhenukasura. O Lord of the universe, with thy childhood stage ending at 5 years of age, thou came to the endearing stage of boyhood from 6 to 10 years of age and started to rear cows instead of calves with great enthusiasm. O Lord of Guruvayur, thou who incarnated for the protection of the earth, most befittingly took up the task of protecting the cows at this stage. The word Gotra is used here in both the sentences. Once, while wandering leisurely in the forest with thy brother Balarama, enjoying the beautiful scenery, thy comrade Sridama wished to visit the forest spot of Dhenukavana, so thou accompanied him there with joy. Complying with thy wishes, Balarama forcefully shook all the tall palm trees in that orchard, by which clumps of fruits, both raw and ripe, fell to the earth, scattering in all directions. Hearing that sound, the demon Dhenuka, in the form of an ass, appeared there. Considering the fact that thou art the protector of the cows, thou felt that it would not be proper for thee to kill the demon called Dhenuka, meaning cow, and hence thou entrusted the task of destroying this demon, who was an enemy of the gods, to thy elder brother, who accomplished this job. Immediately the attendants of that demon came to attack thee in the guise of a jackal. O Lord, thou along with thy elder brother lifted them playfully as if they were jumbo fruits and effortlessly threw them onto the palm trees. When thou began to destroy that army of jackals or jambukas, Varuna, the rain god, was filled with fear, as he was also known by the name Jambuka. So he preferred to let that name remain only in the Vedas and not to be used in customary speech. O Murari, the gods in heaven praise thee, exulting that the fruit of thy incarnation had been acquired. Thou, jestingly agreed with them, saying that the jumbo fruits had fallen down and ate them with the children. Eating those big, luscious fruits, dripping with sweet syrup to their heart's content, the children gathered the remaining bunches of fruits to take home, feeling quite happy and proud. Accompanied by them, thou reached home. O Lord, partaking the sweet fruits brought by the children, all the people in the village exulted over the killing of the demon Denuka by thee, and wished thee success, prosperity, and a long life in loud tones. O Guru Ayyappa, may thou who worth praise thus protect me from afflictions. Dasakam 54. Kalia comes to Yamuna. Long ago, a sage called Saubhari, who wished to serve thee, was doing penance, immersed in the waters of the river Kalinidhi for 12 years. During this time, he became deeply attached to the shoals of fish, indulging in romantic sports in the waters around him. Then one day, he saw Garuda in person in front of him. The vehicle Garuda, the son of Triksha, started eating the fish as he was very hungry. Enraged by this sight, the sage cursed Garuda to lose his life if he tried to eat any living creature again in that region. Meanwhile, the serpent Kalia, who was very vain of the deadly poison in his body, ate the portion of food allotted to the enemy of serpents. Overcome by anger, Garuda, who is a devotee of thy lotus-like feet, attacked him with his wings and chased him. So Kalia took refuge in that part of the river Kalinidhi, which was out of bounds for Garuda due to the sage's curse. The waters of the river Yamuna in the portion inhabited by the deadly Kalia became contaminated by the viciousness of his deadly poison, destroying the trees on that river bank and causing the flights of birds overflying it to fall down dead. By all these events, thy mind was filled with mercy. Once thou had gone to the forest region near the river Yamuna with Balrama. The cows and the cowards, feeling intensely thirsty due to the unbearable summer heat, drank the poisonous water of the river Yamuna. O Achyuta, seeing them all collapsing lifeless on the ground, thou full of compassion cast the nectar of thy glances on them and resuscitated them at once. Revived thus, the host of cowards got up and feeling thrills of rapture all over their body, marveled at the turn of events, seeing thee in front of them and perceiving that it was another miracle of thine, since they had witnessed many such before. They warmly embraced thee. Similarly, the cows too, which had regained their lives instantly, full of delight at seeing thee in front of them, rallied around thee, expressing the gratitude by shedding tears of joy and moving in soft tones. O Mukunda, the cow-herds with their hair standing on end and the thrills of ecstasy vibrating through their body could not find words to express their feelings. They thought that it was due to the strange effect of the poison. They praised and thanked thee profusely with joy. In this manner, thou art capable of reviving thy devotees even if they are dead and nourishing them back to health with thy gracious glances. O Guru Ayyappa, of such boundless mercy, may thou guard me against illness. Dasakam 55. Krishna's dance on Kalia. O Lord, determined to drive away that deadly serpent from the river, thou quickly climbed onto the Kadamba tree on the river bank with all its leaves dried up owing to the poisonous air around it. Thou placed thy feet, which had a pleasing radiance akin to that of fresh, tender saplings, on the tree trunk, and climbing to the top, plunged into the swirling, deep waters of the river, full of dreadful surging waves, and went far down below. Owing to the fact that thou support the weight of the three worlds, thy body sank deep into the river, making the waters rise upward with a thunderous sound, submerging the land on both banks to a distance of 100 bowlines. The deep whirling swells generated in the agitated waters in all directions due to thy plunging into it and the deafening uproar which accompanied it enraged the serpent Lord Kalia, and he emerged from the waters and approached thee. The serpent, with its 1,000 hoods, hissing in a deadly manner, producing fiery sparks and spewing out its vicious, poisonous venom, appeared like a multi-peaked mountain of mascara in front of thee, with its eyes flaming and its breath emitting deadly poisonous fumes, generating intense heat all around. That serpent lord bit thee hard, but finding thee unmoored, wrapped itself tightly around thee, who hath unlimited power and strength, quite amazing indeed. While the cowherd boys and cows waiting on the banks were getting worried and restless by the disappearance into the river, the grown-ups in the village, citing many evil omens in their house, came to the river Yamuna in haste. O Lord Omnipotent, seeing thy condition, all of them, overcome by grief, decided to give up their life, when all of a sudden thou, freeing thyself from the deadly grip of the serpent, rose above the waters, smiling nonchalantly. Then, stepping onto the hoods of the serpent lord, thou danced with thy radiant, delicate feet to the tinkle of thy anklet bells, rhyming with the sweet jingle of the bangles on thine hands. Seeing thee dancing, the cowards exulted, the sages were delighted, and the gods in heaven sent a shower of flowers. O Guruvairappa of such glory, may thou save me from incurable disease. Dasakam 56. Blessing Kalia. O Lord, the celestial maidens sang melodiously, and the gods beat the drums in tune into that, while thou danced for a long, long time, with thy adorable earrings dangling back and forth on the hoods of the serpent. O Hari, letting off those hoods of Kalia, which bowed down, and stepping vigorously with thy lotus-like feet on those which were raised, thou danced for a long to the musical rhythm beat of thy hands with utmost charm. O Madhava, when at long last the serpent lord, with its array of hoods bent down and subdued by thy rhythmic treading, was thoroughly worn out, and the waters around him had turned red by the blood flowing from his hoods, his wives came and prostrated at thy feet. The serpent woman who had in the remote past heard of thy glory and who had dedicated their minds to thee ever since then, now sang hymns of praise which are full of devotion and knowledge that could not be comprehended even by illustrious sages, and which came to them naturally without any inhibition. O Achyuta, seeing the outpouring of devotion from the serpent lord's wife, thy mind was filled with pity, and thou released him, granting him life. He showed his gratitude by prostrating at thy feet in total surrender. Thou advised him to go to the Ramanaka island, located in the central part of the ocean, where he would not be troubled by his enemy Garuda. Followed by thy advice, with due respect, the serpent lord departed along with the other snakes. Adorned with the sets of precious stones, brilliant necklaces, and silk garments presented by the serpent king's wife, thou were reunited at dusk with thy own people, waiting on the banks, shedding tears of joy. Then, as darkness fell, the Gopas could not return to their homes in the village, so they took refuge at thy feet and spent the night in the forest nearby. Then, all of a sudden, a forest fire surrounded them. Scorched by the intense heat, the cowards came awake and wailed pitifully to be saved. Wishing to protect them, thou instantly swallowed the raging fire in one gulp. What is so amazing about this? Fire is indeed thy mouth. O Hari, the cowards, overcome with joy, praise thee, marveling that yellowness, which was an attribute of fire only as a color till now, had now become an essence of it by the act of being drunk also by the Lord. O Guruvairappa, may thou who wert extolled thus remove my disease as also the sins which caused them. Dasakam 57. Slaying of Pralamba Sura. O Lord, who fulfills all our heart's desire, one day thou went to the forest, decked in all thy brilliant finery, along with the Balarama and the cows and the cowherd children, revealing to Balarama the pure scenic beauty of Brindavana of thy own will, and sporting with thy children carrying sticks, thou came near the banyan tree called Bandiraka. Then the wicked, ruthless demon Pralamba, possessed of long hairs, came towards thee in the form of a coward with the intention of killing thee. Pretending to be ignorant of his evil intention and his disguise to cheat thee, thou befriended him and began to play the game of duel fight organized by the small coward boys near the banyan tree. O Lord, dividing the coward boys into the two teams, one captained by Balarama and the other by thee, thou allowed the demon who was afraid of thy strength to play in thy team. In accordance with the rules of the game, that the winner should be carried on the back of the loser, thou who lost the fight carried thy best friend Sridama, who was in the winning team, on thy back, thus demonstrating thy affection for thy devotees. O Lord of infinite glory, as the game progressed, these boys who lost were the bearers, and those who won were borne by them. Pralamba, who was defeated by Balarama, carried him a long way off, being afraid of thee. Seeing that he had been carried a long distance away from thee, Balarama increased the weight of his body as much as he could. The demon, unable to bear the weight, donned his real form, seeing which even the powerful Balarama was alarmed. As the demon was very tall, Balarama, seated on his shoulder, saw thy face clearly even from that distance, and with his fear gone by sighting thee, he struck the most cruel of demons with his sturdy fist and crushed him instantly. Thou embraced Balarama, who came back after killing the demon fighter most affectionately. The gods in heaven poured a shower of flowers on both thy heads as thou stood together. O Lord Hari, who art the support of the worlds, shining with the luster of black bees, O Guru Airappa, who destroyed Pralamba, thus may thou soon remove my afflictions without further loss of time. Dasakam 58, a rescue from fire. While thou wert preoccupied in sports activities with the coward boys and the grilling of Pralamba, which followed, the cows wandering at will and going in search of greener pastures came to the forest called Ishika. Venturing out of Brindavana, where the intensity of summer had not yet become unbearable, and those cows wandered onto the forest land outside and became extremely thirsty due to the scorching heat of the summer season. Added to that, being separated from thee made them feel desolate and forlorn, and so they stood paralyzed and numb. O Sauri, thou searching far and wide with thy companions for the cows, espied them into the Munja forest, wandering aimlessly, having lost their way. When thou hast turned thy steps to retrieve them, a forest fire broke out, engulfing them all around, spreading very fast. How unfortunate indeed! As the forest fire raged furiously with a terrible sound of crackling timber all around, the cows found their escape route blocked on all sides and were in agony, as if half burnt. Bellowing piteously to be saved, they sought refuge in thee, O Lord, who art the sole remover of distress and who are the friend of all the world. Asking them not to be afraid and to shut their eyes, thou pacified them. Complying with thy request, they closed their eyes, and an instant later, to the great amazement, when they opened their eyes again, they found themselves in the Bandira region with no sign of the forest fire or the Munja forest. Expressing great wonder at this Maya of thine and praying ardently for thy ever-growing glory, the cowards praised thee, accepting their praises with a gracious smile. Thou, indulging in various charming sports, roamed about in that pleasant forest region, where the summer season could be recognized only by the blossoming of the patala trees and such like. Thou spent the summer season, which is intensely hot like the agony of those who hate thee, and which, like the devotion, dries up the mud of sin within the heart, and which, like thy long-reaching arm, is capable of emitting the luster of heat in the vicinity of the river Yamuna. Then thou spent the rainy season, which brings joy to the whole world, with its cluster of clouds, glowing like thy form, and its brilliant lightning sparks, dazzling like thy yellow robe, in the caves of the mountains, in comfort and happiness. O Lord of Lords, Thou Almighty, who wert living in those caves, wert worshipping daily by the King of Mountains, Govardhana, with songs of praises in the form of the joyous calls of peacock and with bunches of flowers blossoming on the Kutaja and Kadamba trees. Then thou enjoyed the Sarat season with its copious flow of water, crystal clear like the minds of the devotees, tending the cows in the fertile grasslands of the forest, allowing them to graze happily all over. O Guruvairappa, of such sports may thou bless me with good health. Dasakam 59. Krishna playing the flute. The gopis were extremely fascinated by the appearance as beautiful as a fresh kalaya flower, multiplying love and infatuating all, and which is the integrated form of truth, intellect and bliss, or in other words, the supreme truth, the Parabrahman. O Hari, the Gopikas, with their minds invaded by Cupid, the god of love, wishing to have a glimpse of thee at all times and places, could not bear thy leaving for the forest at dawn. After thy departure, those dear-eyed lasses, with their eyes riveted in thy direction and their mind following thy path to the forest, were overjoyed to hear the melodious strains of thy flute from a distance and passed the time talking of thy divine sports. On reaching the forest, thou standing under the pleasant shade of a tree, with thy right foot slightly elevated and placed across the left, started to play the flute. O Lord, the music from thy flute set the hearts of the celestial maidens fluttering, due to the piercing of Cupid's arrows, made the kingdom of beasts and birds to come to a standstill, and even the stones to melt. Those coward maidens, though unable to see thee in physical form, could very well visualize in their mind their nimble petal-like fingers flitting over the holes of the flute and thy sprig-like feet beating in time with the tune, and by simply imagining this charming posture of thine, they swooned in rapture. They considered the heavenly beings, the birds, the bees, and cows, and the very ground in which thou walked in the forest to be the most blessed of all, as they were fortunate enough to see thee unhindered and unobstructed. These lovelorn lasses longed to taste the nectar of thy lips, at least whatever remained after being imbibed by the flute, but they lamented that such a time was still very far off, and that they were nourishing such a hope in vain. With such depressing thoughts crossing their minds, they swooned frequently. O Lord, in this manner, day after day, these maidens, smitten by their extreme love for thee, by the grace of Cupid, became more and more confused and lost interest in their household duties. Love comes naturally to all. The path to liberation may be attained through effort, or at times may not be achieved. But these damsels, being extremely fortunate, attained both love and salvation in one go, a very great blessing indeed. O Guruvairappa, may thou save me. Dasakam 60. Stealing the clothes. The twinkle-eyed gopikas, with their minds overcome with love for thee, wished to serve thy 2 feet. To achieve this desire, they prayed daily to an image of Devi Parvati made out of sand on the banks of the river Yamuna. Their minds intent on chanting their names and stories, these charming maidens would congregate on the river bank at dawn, and worshipping the goddess with hundreds of offerings, pray earnestly to her for obtaining the sons of Nanda as their husband. When these beautiful maidens had kept this vow for a whole month, thou, taking pity on them, went to the river bank in order to bless them. Having fulfilled the vow, those damsels, removing their clothes and leaving them on the river bank, indulged in water sports in the Yamuna. Seeing thee in front of them, they felt extremely ashamed. As they stood with their face bent down in shame, thou quickly gathered the pile of clothes lying nearby and climbed onto the branch of a tree. With a gentle teasing smile, thou invited them to come to thee and take the garments which belonged to each one of them, without any mix-up. Hearing thy words, the maidens were extremely embarrassed. Those helpless damsels, praying for thy long life and declaring themselves to be thy slaves, beseech thee, the lotus-eyed petson of Nanda, to return their garments. Entreated thus by them, thou gave them only a beatific smile instead of their clothes. Having no other way, they came up the bank with hands folded in supplication and minds purified, and took refuge in thee. Thou happily returned their clothes and blessed them with the following words. Thou assuring those maidens that thou wert aware of their heart's desires, promised them that very shortly they would get an appropriate answer on a moonlight night on the sandbanks of the Yamuna. O Lord, hearing from thy mouth these words dripping with honey, the doe-dyed damsels went homeward at a slow pace, repeatedly turning around to see thy lotus-like face full of love for thee. O Hari, having blessed the gopis thus, thou wandered round in the forest as before. O Lord, who art pervaded by the coolness of mercy, may thou soon remove all my maladies.